Hey, I'm Cody from Unqualified Gamers, a podcast member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the one you're listening to right now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual. Check out other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
You are listening to the Starling Tribune, a podcast dedicated to the Arrow TV show.
This guy gets more airtime than the Kardashians, right?
This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, situations, and stories are the properties of Time Warner. I am the Oracle, and this is your Tribune.
Welcome back to Earth 2's favorite audio newspaper, the Starling Tribune. I am your chief editor tonight. My name is SP, and I have a couple of the other great reporters for this episode number 177. And we'll start with Chris.
I'm a big fan of justice.
And truth, justice, hope too. And Michelle.
You smell good.
Are you sure? Because I really haven't taken a shower. Did I smell bad before?
No, look, Amy Adams is overdue for an Oscar, and she actually deserves one for this movie because she said that line with a straight face.
That's a terrible line, too.
I know,
I laughed
right?
in the movie.
That's like the worst line in the movie. And she's there and she pulled it off. Kudos to you, Amy.
Oh, yeah, I do enjoy her very much in all the shows. Let's get back to the podcast, though, for a second, then we'll get back to Amy. This podcast is recorded on Sunday, November 19th, 2017, live via geeks.live. Remember, our audio newspaper is full of facts, speculations, and spoilers about the CW show Arrow, and I think this podcast proves the rest of the DC movie, comic, and TV universes.
So tonight we'll be discussing our impressions and thoughts on the new release in 2017 of Justice League. That doesn't mean we might not accidentally start talking about the CW shows and draw parallels between characters that might be the same across the two shows and things like that. Hint, hint, I'm going to do that as we get into the show. So just consider yourselves warned. We're going to cover everything.
If you're new to the show, thank you for searching us out on the internet and joining us. After the show, you can check out our content at GonnaGeek.com, where you can also find other geeky videos, podcasts, and articles.
All right, guys, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm really excited to discuss a DC film. So, Michelle, let's get into the behind the scenes of the film.
Sure. Justice League was released November 17, 2017, and that's in the United States. Had a reported budget of $300 million. That's $300 million. Running time, 120 minutes. Produced by Charles Roven, Deborah Snyder, John Berg, and Jeff Jones. Directed by Zack Snyder with a little help from Joss Whedon. Writing credits. All right. Screenplay by Chris Terrio and Joss Whedon. Story by Chris Terrio and Zack Snyder. Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. Justice League of America created by Gardner Fox. Batman created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Wonder Woman created by William Moulton Marston. And Fourth World created by Jack Kirby. And I put this in the show notes because I think it's important. And I looked this up so I could actually make sure that I was correct about the Fourth World, because knowing about this really helps set up the movie. So Jack Kirby's Fourth World is a turn of phrase commonly attributed to a family of titles created in the 1970s by writer-illustrator Jack Kirby. When Jack Kirby returned to working for DC Comics in the 1970s, he introduced what would become known as the Fourth World concept. He created a science fiction-based mythology revolving around ancient space deities known as the New Gods. Similar to the gods of Earth lore, the New Gods were larger than life, possessing fantastic powers, which they used in never-ending struggle between good and evil. Fourth World characters include Steppenwolf and Darkseid. So that's why I wanted to go into that, because, well, that's basically, the movie.
Yes, and
So,
Darkseid's
Chris,
important.
yes, Darkseid's important. So, Chris, why don't you break down the cast for us?
So let's run down the major characters and major players in this. You're probably familiar with the first group of them because we've seen them in previous iterations of the DC Cinematic Universe. So getting top billing in this is Ben Affleck as Batman, aka Bruce Wayne. Second billing is Henry Cavill as Superman / Clark Kent, because, yeah, we all knew he's coming back to life. Next, Amy Adams returns as Lois Lane. Gal Gadot returns as Wonder Woman and Diana Prince. New to everything, Ezra Miller as the Flash / Barry Allen, and really influenced also by Bart Allen and Wally West, it seemed. Next up, Jason Momoa as Aquaman / Arthur Curry, i.e. the most badass version of Aquaman we've seen in any incarnation. Next, Ray Fisher as Cyborg / Victor Stone. Next, the faithful Alfred Pennyworth, portrayed by Jeremy Irons. Diane Lane returned as Martha Kent, aka Kal-El of Krypton's adoptive mother. Connie Nielsen as Queen Hippolyta, the mother of Diana. J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon. And side note, we saw his gym pics as he got ripped to be Commissioner Gordon. You couldn't really tell because he's wearing a trench coat and a suit the entire time. But kudos to you, J.K. I loved you as Commissioner Gordon. The only name I'm going to struggle with, but I think I've got it right, is Ciaran Hinds as the voice of Steppenwolf. Next is Amber Heard in as Mira, and if you read the comics, you'll have an idea of who she is. Joe Morton as Silas Stone. Joe Manganiello as, let's just call him Mr. Wilson until we get to the post-credits stuff. And finally, Jesse Eisenberg returns in a small cameo as Lex Luthor.
Wow. A lot of great actors and actresses in the main cast there. I just want to call attention to a couple if I can right now. One is Ezra Miller. Definitely not the Flash that we've seen on CW. Kind of close, but definitely not the Flash. So people were going into the movie thinking they were going to see the same Flash that they've seen on the CW. They were wrong. Now, I don't know anybody that has had any connectivity to the DC universe would have not known that, but that's something to bring forward.
They did,
Yes.
however, use the exact same origin as the television's version of the Flash.
They did indeed. So there's that. And then Mira, really liked her portrayal. So more on that later. And also, we just had a lot. So Gal Gadot, when I first saw her on screen, I'm like, man, she's come a long way since Fast and Furious. So anyway, Justice League is the title of the episode. Michelle, what's the overall theme there?
Well, let's see. In the countless ads that they had, they used this. I don't want to sing the song because of fair use, but come together, and they did. That's what the film's about, is getting the band together and taking care of the big bad.
And doing 3 origin stories.
If there's a weakness in this movie, that is one of them, that you have 3 origin stories in this movie. It's not unprecedented, but it definitely took away from the film overall.
So I think part of that weakness is they did it to themselves, because we know they cut a bunch out of this movie. If you believe the internet rumors, there was a mandate from the studio on high to get the running time as close to 2 hours as they could. I think they hit it exactly on the dot, and I bet you there's a bunch of backstory and things like that we're going to be missing.
Oh, yeah.
Director's cut.
Yeah, there's a petition to get the director's cut, especially since some of the leaked scenes have come online. Like there's Iris West was cast, and she's was in it, but was cut in order to meet that running time. So
remember, it's not unprecedented. Batman v Superman cut out, 50 minutes of content and then dropped that in the director's cut also. So I would not be surprised if we got that. And what would be really interesting is the director's commentary, because there's a distinction I think you can make when you watch this movie of what was done by Zack Snyder and what was done by Joss Whedon. And maybe because I was looking for it was noticeable, but I noticed it, and I would be very curious in the director's commentary to hear them talk about, well, here's what I intended in this scene, and here's what Joss did, and here's how we merged it together. That could be a cool conversation.
that would be kind of neat.
It would. And from that perspective, I just want to say, if Joss Whedon hadn't come into this film, I think that Justice League would have probably had the same sort of negativity that was associated with Batman versus Superman, because I saw the same sorts of things. Of course, with Zack Snyder involved, you would think he would carry those themes through. And I just don't think the public wants to see that. And
We don't need
even
more grimdark just to be grimdark.
right. And I saw shadows of that throughout the film. And it definitely, I'm glad Joss was there to bring the levity and the light to the film, because I don't think this film would have worked otherwise, given the origins that they already had coming into the movie. So it's just my 2 cents.
I talked about it a little bit on a different podcast I do this morning. And I said it felt like there were different moments where you could tell the difference. And one of our listeners in our chat room, Sailor Poland, had brought up and said, here's why. He goes, you look at the costumes that were made, they're very much designed to fit in with Zack Snyder's grim, dark, super effect-laden world. And when you start getting them outside of that into more of the daylight, into more of the Whedon style of things, the costumes don't quite look as good. And I kind of paused and I went, he might be right. Because compare things like, a spoiler, we're going to talk about the movie, when Clark wakes up as Superman, he's just beating the crap out of the Justice League. The costumes are more brightly illuminated. They're in daylight. It's a very different view, and it doesn't quite look as good as, say, the end when you're in the abandoned Chernobyl-like town with the dark palette that Zack Snyder likes and things like that. So you can kind of see the difference there, because I think he was right. The costumes weren't quite designed for the kind of fighting and the kind of scenery that Whedon wanted to do, and it still worked pretty well, but just a thought.
So the one costume that I would take exception to that would be Wonder Woman, even though Wonder Woman's movie was kind of dark anyway. Her costume fits well on the island as well, even though we haven't really seen too much of her there. And it works well both ways.
Guys, I was just happy Superman's costume is blue finally.
Yeah. We'll talk more about Superman. So, SP, what's the basic plot of the movie?
Well, Steppenwolf, who I'd never really heard of before this movie went into production, just because I don't have a huge comic background, is somehow able to come back to Earth, probably because the whole Superman reanimation thing that was going on in Batman versus Superman, and wants to find the 3 mother boxes. Now, these 3 mother boxes, when coming together, can basically be a Star Trek Genesis device, which will remake a whole planet in the shape and light of Steppenwolf, the guy who's reshaping it. So that's basically it. Steppenwolf is trying to find these 3 boxes and wants to throw the Earth into a new Earth made in his honor. And, you know, he did say something interesting on Themyscira. He said, "You all will love me," which I kind of was scratching my head. Does this mean everything on Earth has to die and come back to life? Or does this mean that people will still live, but they'll be reshaped in his mold? I didn't really understand that.
I think it was more of a reshaping thing, that when the world is changed how he wants it, I'm basically going to be the ruler of it, and you will come to love me, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and Steppenwolf tried this before, and we learn that during this, it was a long time ago, and we had this great unification. We had the Amazons with the help of the gods, we had people from Atlantis, we had humans, and we had Green Lanterns.
Yes, that was so cool. We had a nod to the Green Lanterns. It wasn't any of the Green Lanterns we knew, but we had Green Lanterns in the big fight that they were going back to in the flashback. So that was awesome. We have Green Lanterns in the DC film universe.
I legitimately went, yes, when I saw them on screen, much like Data in Star Trek Generations.
Yes, me too. My mom looked over a little bit at me because I try to be very quiet in a movie theater, and I kind of wasn't that quiet during that moment. But what gets me is like all of them come together in like Lord of the Rings style, like Return of the King, and in order to take down, Steppenwolf, and they actually succeed, and they split up the boxes. One is in Atlantis, one is on Themyscira, and the humans get it and bury the third. So Steppenwolf comes And like we said, he tries to find those boxes. And he doesn't exactly appear first right away, because Batman, he uses a guy to, he's like, the guy who's robbing from the TV, and, Batman captures him and he's like, what do I want? He's like, I want your fear. And, and he gets it to get this parademon and everything. And what do we think about, what gets me, Chris, is that Batman's been doing this for a while.
20 years, I think they said at one point in time in here.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense because he is older and he has been around for a while and is clearly developed in his technology, the Bat Cave, the fact that the freaking airplane was a Bat Cave. If you didn't notice that, that was interesting. So he's been around for a while, and he's also researched all these people as much as he possibly can. So, and he's got contingencies for everybody, including bringing Batman back, which, by the way, that was a given that the big guns was Lois. I called that the minute he said, I have a contingency for that.
Well, it was either Lois or his mom, I figured. Could be either or.
His mom, that was a tough one because Martha might not be the Martha that, it might not be the mom that he was thinking of. Could have, been his mom from Krypton.
He doesn't remember her, though.
Yeah, true. Well,
no, if he has the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah.
Which has his father in it, not his mother.
Doesn't it also have his mom?
Yeah, it does in the film universe.
Okay, my bad. I haven't watched Man of Steel in a while.
Yeah, some people like it, some people don't. I actually like it. But yeah, the Batman, let's get back to Batman. Batman, I don't like his portrayal of Batman. And maybe I just don't like Batman at all. Or how Batman is supposed to be. Like I did like the 89 version of Batman, but I think that was because I got Michael Keaton, and I really haven't gotten a Batman iteration since. I haven't internalized it. So admittedly, there's some bias there for me that way.
So keep in mind, 89 Batman is very loosely connected to Batman of the comics. I think might be the best way to put it.
Right, and that's fine. I mean, if that is not the actual Batman, then, and I'm finding out as I read the comics, I'm not a big fan of the Batman comics. I do read the detective comics, and I like that because of the team aspect of it. But whenever Batman comes, I'm like, this is just not the character for me. So I guess I'm just not a fan of Batman, which, hey, you can be a fan of whatever comic book character you want to be.
The Batman we have here is much closer to the Dark Knight Returns style Batman than it is, say, what you're seeing in the comic books today and from the early run of Batman. Because remember, in Dark Knight Returns, that's the grizzled Batman who's been retired for a while. So this is right before Batman retires, that kind of Batman we have here, where he's got his plans for everything. He's been doing it for so long. He's secure in his thoughts on everything. He's got the tech to do everything. He's got the methodology to do everything. So this is much like the typical fanboy argument of Batman has a plan for everything. Well, this is what you get on the big screen. And to be honest, it's kind of what Batman's superpower is he's really smart. It's not that he's rich. It's that he plans for everything and has contingency plans for every single thing. It's one of the best Justice League arcs in the comics, and I can't remember if it's Jeff Johns or Grant Morrison that wrote it, was the Tower of Babel, where Ra's al Ghul steals Batman's plans out of the Batcomputer on how to neutralize the Justice League if they go bad, and literally shuts down the Justice League, and Batman has to go and confront Ra's al Ghul, finds out that Ra's used his plans to do it, and the League tosses him out. Because, like, we can't have you in here, we can't trust you if this is what you're going to do. It's a great story.
And we have to assume that this Bruce Wayne is way past that has already occurred. The whole, well, not the Justice League part, but the whole connectivity with the League of Assassins. That's already dealt with.
Yeah, this is a Batman that's seasoned, and he even touches on it that he doesn't know how much longer he can do it, which I think is going to come into play in the single Batman movie, regardless of whether Ben Affleck is in it or not. Because if you guys haven't noticed, the rumor out there right now is that Affleck might be done, and they're going to bring in Jake Gyllenhaal to be Batman, which could be interesting. Maybe that's the rumor.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. But anyway, Batman's been doing this for 20 years. And I thought it was interesting that he not only felt guilty about Superman's death, but he also felt like he wasn't the one to put this team together, especially in the comics where he is the one to put all the teams together. So he
Well-
doesn't feel like he's the one to put the teams together, that somebody else should be leading it, somebody else should be putting it together. But he needs to do this in order to make things right because he feels personal guilt over Superman's death.
Yeah, and the one he really kind of wants to take the lead, and that's Wonder Woman, who, oh my gosh, the way we get introduced to her in this film is amazing. It's Paris. She has that great hero shot where she's on the statue, and we see the lasso of truth right away where she gets the plan and she gets that bomb, she tosses it, and then she does that quick moving and the, boom, boom, boom with the bullets and everything. So she does that. And then we cut to the mascara, and that's when we first get Steppenwolf. And the Amazons are guarding with, they know it's the mother box. It's humming for some reason. And Steppenwolf, invades. And it's this epic fight because, they know they have to get the mother box away. And, Hippolyta actually locks her warriors in with him.
To die, pretty
Like-
much.
Yes.
Yeah, like that was intense.
But she didn't make the decision lightly. She saw what was going on and she had to make the decision in order to save the planet. So I get where she was coming from, but you're absolutely right. It was very intense. It was a very emotional and action driven scene, all the way from the point where you had Steppenwolf come down and the box was activating, all the way to where they have to make the what do you call it? The Pantheon burn.
Pantheon.
So yeah, in order to signal
Parthenon.
Diana.
I can't remember. Yeah, which was cool though. I like the fact that they're like, mankind won't know, but she will. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. They haven't given up on Diana. Although I wonder how her mother would feel if she realized that Diana basically quit for 100 years. Because remember, Bruce Wayne called her out on that too, which was interesting.
She didn't totally quit. She was there. She was just in the shadows, so to speak.
Yeah, she wasn't like Superman being the very public beacon of hope. But I love that when Hippolyta's like, fires the thing and then it lights up. And I'm literally like, oh my gosh, the beacons are lit. Gondor calls for aid. And then Diana is basically, and Rohan answers the call. And gives to Bruce, and it's like, you know what? He's all like, something's coming. And she's like, dude, it's already here.
Yeah, we're here now.
And yeah, we're here now. And one of the things that Bruce decides to do, he decides to go north to recruit someone who he knows is called the Aquaman.
And he took some of Oliver Queen's magic beard growing tonic before he did that.
True. True. My first thought about Aquaman is that he's sexy, sexy, sexy. I don't know why, Bland Vanilla Shake got Sexy Man of the Year when we have Jason Momoa being Aquaman. And I bring this up because first off, it is, Momoa, but also Aquaman's been the joke and he's never been seen as sexy. Now, Chris, I know, we've read comics for a while. So, and you're familiar with all the jokes made about Aquaman, I'm sure.
Yes.
So what do you think about having someone like Momoa be Arthur Curry?
I liked it because you're not going to make those same jokes about him. He's very different than the Aquaman we've ever seen in the comics, the cartoons, and the TV shows, any incarnation of Aquaman. That being said, I wish they had given more time to developing Aquaman in this movie. They had 3 origin stories to pull off. I think they got the Flash and Cyborg done all right. I think the Aquaman one was a little lacking. It was, hey, he's half Atlantean or whatnot, and that's all you really need to know. Perhaps they're banking on using his spin-off movie to finish out his origin, something like that. I don't know. He's a badass. He's a warrior. You buy it, and his armor looks awesome and looks nothing like what you've seen in the TV shows where it's like the orange scaly top and the green pants. No. This is like full-on battle armor, and it looks really cool.
So Steppenwolf invades. SP, what did you think of that sequence when Steppenwolf invades Atlantis?
That was interesting. You knew it was coming once you got the background of everything, and you really got the fit of where Aquaman and the Atlanteans were there. Although we are in the midst of Aquaman in a weird situation. Like, he is not known really in Atlantis. So the whole fight scene was okay. Mira, I'm a huge fan of Mira, especially in the comics in the current Rebirth run. She is amazing. And to see her there and to see her meet Artha basically right there in the battle and then try to talk post battle, it was interesting. And then she basically called him out and said, look, you're the firstborn, and since your mom's not here anymore, you have to take care of it. And he says, I'm going to need something, which is why he gets the Triton, I'm assuming.
And the armor.
And the armor, and goes to war basically to go after Steppenwolf. Although I'm a little confused why the full force of Atlantis and Themyscira wasn't really, well, Themyscira is probably devastated, wasn't brought to fight the final fight with Steppenwolf. But it was awesome. Really enjoyed Mara. Also, this is a good time to talk about the CGI, because most of Atlantis, or what we saw of Atlantis, was CGI, and the fact that they're swimming around and stuff like that, all CGI. There has been talk that I've seen since I got out of the movie that CGI wasn't incredibly done. Especially, there was a couple of times where I was noticing Superman. I was like, that face does not look entirely great. And we've all been talking about the mustache for a while, so we knew it was coming. But I actually got to see it, and I was like, this just doesn't look quite right. So there were instances of that, and that was an artifact, of course, of the reshoots and the fact that you have to use CGI in a lot of, like, Steppenwolf. Nobody's going to play Steppenwolf. Yeah, it's got to be a CGI.
Right. In regards to the CGI, especially for the super stash or whatnot, I haven't been able to confirm, but I saw in a couple sources online, they're saying roughly 80% of Henry Cavill's screen time he has in this movie was the reshoots. So they did a lot with him in CGIing out that mustache, if that's the case.
That's why his face looked weird all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, even starting with the little cell phone camera in the very beginning, I'm like, that doesn't look entirely like Henry Cavill. And I kept on just looking at him weirdly and go, well, I mean, I don't know. The guy died. Maybe he came back. Maybe Henry Cavill actually changed the way he looks. And
I'm so glad you mentioned that cell phone camera thing, because I saw someone on Twitter who was complaining like, this is a dumb way to open the movie. I was like, what are you kidding me? This is perfect. This was the first taste we got of Henry Cavill in this iteration of Superman, getting to be like Superman, taking a moment, having that aw shucks farm boy like conversation with kids to explain his backstory, to explain the shield on his chest. This is what you expect out of Superman, is he's always going to take that time. He likes to talk to children. He likes to talk to people and to be the hero. And I was like, this is perfect. This is Superman. This isn't the grim, dark thing we got in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman that I've crapped all over in the past. I was like, this is it. The S flowing like hope and flowing like a river to symbolize how everything goes. I was like, it's awesome. This is perfect. And it was my first taste of Superman in here. And I walked out of this movie, spoiler, being like, holy crap, I buy Henry Cavill as Superman. Henry Cavill is great in the role. Screw all these other spin-off movies. Give me another Superman with the Superman that's been developed throughout Justice League, because it's amazing.
And then getting back to Aquaman, by the way, there were a ton of comic relief scenes in here, and they were done so well. Joss Whedon had to have been the one behind him. Like the fact that Aquaman is sitting on the lasso of truth in the plane or the troop carrier, whatever you want to call it, as they're going to their final fight. And he's all over the place, but he's telling the truth. And you're like, what is going on here? And then finally they're like, and he just doesn't say anything after that. He just shuts up. That was funny. This whole thing is funny. Barry Allen, afraid of just about everything. I mean, it's funny.
Yes.
I like this movie. It made me laugh.
The lasso moment was one I went, okay, this is well done. And then I paused and went, it's got to be Joss Whedon that did this. Anytime we had a character moment, like when you have a Cyborg and Barry digging up Superman's grave, and they have that offbeat conversation where they're going back and forth, I'm like, these are the character moments you need to buy these guys as a team. I really enjoy this. And then I paused and I went, this has got to be Joss Whedon, because it has, I hate to use this to describe, but it has that Avengers vibe. And I don't mean that disparagingly, but they had those nice back and forth between characters where you start to buy the relationships between them. Whedon is great at developing relationships between characters. And I honestly would be curious to see, especially if we had that dream director's commentary, how many of those character building moments were Whedon versus Snyder and vice versa on the fight scenes. It'd be very interesting to me.
Yeah. Since we're talking about the boxes, the third box ends up with Star Labs, ends up there. Victor Stone's dad uses it in order to, well, bring him back to life and to make him Cyborg. And what's interesting is that Cyborg is continually evolving. He doesn't really have control yet of all of his systems, and that takes big part in the movie. My favorite part of Cyborg is that they didn't sideline him. A lot of people were worried that, oh, there's Cyborg, that's great. He's the black guy. Maybe he won't be in that much of the movie, but he is vital. He's hacking into like bat devices. He finds the third box. He's able to hack into the Kryptonian device in order to resurrect Superman. He's key to split apart the boxes at the end. Like you said, that great character moment where Barry is like, hey, we're the accidents and everything. I was very happy that, he got a good arc and he was important.
And best of all, we got the booyah line. Because if you were like me who loved the Teen Titans cartoon, that was his catchphrase there. So when he just drops the booyah, it brought a smile to my face. And I was like, okay, they've done a good job with his character. And they gave me my tie back into the other stuff I love. I was like, okay, well done here. And again, I said they got 2 out of the 3 origin stories right. I bought Cyborgs. I thought it was well done.
So I thought it was very interesting that the head of Star Labs was also Miles Davis from Cyberdyne from Terminator 2 and dealing with creating Skynet and the destruction of all mankind. So that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the same actor. It wasn't the same character, but that's the same actor.
Nice.
Yeah, I know, from 1991. That was when that movie came out. So 2001, 2011, 2017, that's 26 years later, Miles Davis reprises his role as the head of Star Labs. Just saying, just in case you didn't catch that. So there was definitely some tech going on there and some cybernetics going on there. To get to your point, though, Cyborg was not sidelined at all. I thought he was fully integrated into the team to the point where he felt it was okay to break off from the team in order to do what needed to be done to get to the final result. It happened down in the tunnels. It happened when he was trying to part the boxes apart from each other. So there's that. And we'll have to talk about that final sequences with the boxes too, because I think there was a definite reason why Superman was taken off the board between last movie and this movie.
And it seems like we all agree that the third origin that they got right was the Flash with Barry Allen. He is quippy and funny throughout the entire movie. In this case, he's lost. Yes, his dad's in prison, but he's got like 3 jobs. He's living in, I don't know, like a room in a warehouse or something. All the TV screens. He's made his suit somehow. I don't know how quite he would have gotten those materials. And I thought that was great where,
he got those materials because he was an ice dancer, a very competitive ice dancer.
I love that story he tells Bruce. I'm a competitive ice dancer. But then Bruce just whips out a batarang, and tosses it, and he catches it. And he's immediately like, oh my God, you're the Batman. This is the coolest thing ever. And he immediately wants to join the team because he knows he needs friends. And I really felt connected to him when he said, I don't get people. Because there are times when I don't get people.
That makes total sense with him because he's moving at the speed of the Speed Force and everybody around him isn't. So for him not to understand the speed that other people move at is understandable. And I'm glad he realizes that. And I'm glad he realizes that he needs somebody else to ground him. And who better to ground him than a bunch of other supers like Batman? But I guess his superpower is that he's rich. So that's not really like him. But anyway, he idolizes Batman and
So
the bat signal. And that's cool.
That was kind of an attempt to make him be like Tony Stark, I felt like. And I don't know whose line it was, but I remember seeing that and I was like, oh, okay, that sounds like something Tony Stark would say, not Bruce Wayne. But so what made me kind of interested here is, let's step to Spider-Man Homecoming to make a Marvel parallel here. You had a young Peter Parker with the mentor Tony Stark. I think you've got a very similar vibe here with a young Barry Allen who kind of looks as Bruce Wayne as a superhero mentor of types. Not in quite the same kind of adoration that Peter had for Tony, but it's kind of interesting to see that parallel between these two series and to see this kind of pseudo father and son kind of vibe. And it was interesting to me.
Yeah, and there's that scene where they're going to fight Steppenwolf, and Barry looks at that and he's just like, I don't think so. There's all those hostages. There's that big guy. All I do is run really fast and push people. And Batman looks at him and says, just save one, Barry. Just go and save one. And he's like, which one? He's like, it doesn't matter. Just go in, save one, and then see what happens.
Right, exactly.
And he gets it from that point in time, and it's great. And also his scene in the final fight where he's running around the inside of the nuclear steam reactor tower, and he's having a fun time, and you could see he's got a little smirk on his face, and then he trips again. He trips throughout this entire movie. Come on, Barry, you're moving fast. Just get your foot down and not trip over anything. And Batman has to save it. How Batman moved that fast to save Barry, who's moving faster than the speed of light at that point in time, I have no idea.
Well, he's not moving faster than the speed of light. He's not moving that fast. He's not time traveling yet. He's new. He's
okay,
not
fast. That's fine. My point is he's moving too fast even for Batman to know that he tripped and he's falling.
Well, he's Batman. He would have seen like maybe the lights, not moving in the line that it should have been. So,
but Batman be able to react that fast, I don't think that's logical. Although it was kind of funny, by the way, where he's trying to flank Steppenwolf, and Steppenwolf's eyes just move over, and the terror on his face is like, oh no, and he can't stop moving, and Steppenwolf actually is able to move fast as him. So that was all pretty cool. Oh, was that Steppenwolf? That was Superman, right?
That was Superman. And that's what I want to get to. So, Bruce feels really guilty that, Superman died, and Superman's missed by the world, and things are going to crap. And it seems as though like the fear of the world is what attracts Steppenwolf back and such. And the moment that they get the third mother box and they realize what it could do, Bruce has this great idea. He's like, look, let's dig up the body. Let's put it in that amniotic fluid in the Kryptonian ship and use the cube to bring him back to life. And Diana is like, that might not be a good idea. Was it? Because in the comic book, I have to admit, I'm spoiling the comic book, The Death of Superman. Because Chris, remind me.
I think you're okay to spoil it. It's been out like 25 years.
Well, yeah. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically in that case, it's like his dad is like, wait a minute, you're not human, you're Kryptonian. He should still be alive. And he goes on this weird journey and to like find Kal-El's soul or something to bring him back that way. It kind of happened in like a
So they did that kind of side plot, and then what they ended up having it be for the resurrection of him is in the Death of Superman. Then there were 4 different Superman-inspired characters that popped up. There was Steel, Superboy, Eradicator, and Cyborg Superman, I think it was. And we end up finding out how Superman comes back as Eradicator had taken his body because it was Kryptonian and wouldn't degrade or anything like that, and had put him in some kind of box at the Fortress of Solitude that would gradually regenerate him and bring him back. So that was how they solved the death of Superman in the comics is one of the 4 fake Superman who we were supposed to believe might potentially be a brainwashed or memory lost Superman saved his life to bring him back, but at the same time kind of filled that role. And I believe there was that whole Spirit Quest thing going on as a side thing. I wasn't reading Superman a ton back in that day, and to be honest, I don't read Superman much now, but I have gone back and read the death of Superman and some of the stuff that spawned out of it. So it's interesting. They sort of followed what they did in the comics by replacing the fortress with the Kryptonian ship here, which makes sense because none of those guys could get into the fortress.
Yeah, and Barry jump starts the cube at the right time and everything, and then we get, and then once the cube hits, we get Superman alive right away. Were you surprised that it was like right away, or did we want more of like a?
Let me take my movie going hat on for a second. I went, oh, this is going to have to happen immediately because we're like halfway through what the runtime of this movie is. We're not going to have any time where they're like, oh crap, this didn't work, and we get a dramatic moment of like a fist punching through a grave head later or something like that as he awakens. I kind of wish they had waited a little bit and it was, oh, this didn't work, and they're kind of having to deal with that, and then you get crazy Kal-El that they have to deal with.
Yeah, you're right. There's 2 things that you could have done. You could have either of waking him up right away, or you could have gone past the crazy Superman and into normal. You had to choice one or the other. And in my mind, it's pretty obvious, especially with all the energy in that room, that boom. And his body didn't degrade at all. And that was discussed during the movie, that he was just in a vibrational state because of the magnetic electro field that was around him and stuff. So, okay, if you're going to go there, then boom, you can be revived really easily after that.
And I think that this was almost essential to have the crazy Superman who's confronted by the League, because what they did is they basically set it up so if you haven't seen these other movies, or your only taste of it was Batman v Superman, no. Superman, he was probably holding back a little bit there. Superman's a badass. A crazy Superman who has been dead for months, who doesn't know what's going on, who probably doesn't remember how to use his powers appropriately, hands the Justice League their butts. I mean, he barely breaks a sweat taking them out, and it goes to establish the fact that Superman is super powerful. You don't realize it because he's always holding back. He's never going a full 100%, because if he does, he'll destroy things around him. If you've ever seen the Justice League Unlimited cartoon, there's a great moment where Superman confronts Darkseid, and he has this whole line of, I live in a world of cardboard, one misstep and I could destroy it all around me, but with you, I don't have to hold back because you can take it. And he goes full power and wipes out Darkseid. And this is kind of a taste of that here. This is an unhinged Superman who's not holding back. Or if he is, he's only holding back a little bit because he just hands it to them. And it goes to establish this is why the world needs him. He's a symbol of hope, but at the same time, it's obvious that Steppenwolf even mentions the Kryptonian's dead, so it's our chance to do it. They're probably a little scared of him because he's super powerful.
Yeah, and I wanted to get to that last scene where they're pulling the cubes apart. Again, Superman has to come in. And I think maybe Superman could have done it all by himself once the cubes were halfway separated. But I don't think he could have done the initial separation. But with Superman around, you're absolutely right, Chris. This crisis would never have gotten to the point where it gotten at the end. So this movie only takes place if Superman is off the board. And they needed him off the board to do that, and that's why they killed him. And of course, as a moviegoer and as a fan of the DC universe, you kind of know this going into it, but you don't know for sure what the next step is going to be. All you know is they've killed Superman. And if you are a Superman fan, I could see why that was one of the many things that people didn't like Batman versus Superman about. But we get the resurrection here, and hopefully we can move on. And with Wonder Woman coming in pretty strong, we all enjoyed this one. I know it's a little bit divisive outside of our circle, but I think for the most part, there's a large majority of people that have seen this movie that are genuinely surprised that it was as decent as it was. So I think we can go forward here and hopefully get better in the DC universe. And it all really stems to Superman coming back to life in the way he did and being able to save the planet as he did, which the last battle was so epic. It took a long time, but it was fun. And it was even fun because Wonder Woman basically disregarded her orders She said, no, we're going to save you. Now, we all agreed that it'd be fine if we didn't, but she said we had to, so we're going to.
And it was a total Batman move to basically be like, I'm going to take the bullet for everyone. He does it in his own books. He did it in the Justice League cartoon and things like that. It's a total Batman move to be like, you guys need to do this. And his play is, I'm going to go do something incredibly reckless, but only I can pull it off because I'm Batman.
Yeah.
He does wreak a lot of havoc in the process.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to get back to Superman just for a little bit. So after that really cool epic fight, Lois is the big gun that Batman brings out because he knows. Because I liked that when Superman's like squeezing Batman, he's like, "Oh, I remember you. I don't like you. The world needs me, doesn't need you." And it's almost like Batman's like, "Well, yeah, you're kind of right." But he's like, "Alfred, I need the big gun." And there's Lois, and then he recognizes Lois. They fly away back to the farm. That's where you get the whole "you smell good" awful line. And he's smiling. And when he comes back into like the fold, like, I'm really glad that they actually took this opportunity to fix Superman. They killed him, and then they were able to, with this resurrection, give us the Superman we have always deserved. He ends up joking, he ends up laughing, he's smiling, he seems to be actually happy being Superman. And oh my gosh, how happy are you that we actually get our Superman?
Exactly. That came out of this movie. I had a friend of mine that said, I saw this movie, he goes, and I think Henry Cavill is the best live action depiction of Superman now. And I went, whoa, that is a huge thing to say. He goes, go watch it for yourself. And I stepped out of that movie and I went, holy crap, Henry Cavill is the comic version of Superman stepped off the page. The Christopher Reeve Superman is great, but the Christopher Reeve movie Superman, it's not quite Superman, even though that's what everyone envisions as the Superman they've come to expect. Henry Cavill is comic book Superman stepped off the page, and he nailed it. And they've given him the Superman character that it should be. Not the brooding, dark Superman who's acting more like a Batman character, but the Superman that knows he's a symbol of hope, that he can help lead people to greatness. He's there to save lives, to help, to educate, things like that. And I went, holy crap, this is awesome. And it's like I said earlier in the show, I want a Superman movie now with this version of Superman as he's evolved post his death. Just don't let Zack Snyder do it, because I don't think he gets Superman. I really don't. Especially if it's true that 80% of Henry Cavill's screen time is the Joss Whedon reshoots. He doesn't get Superman.
And it's, I think, worth a note here that we say that the reason why Zack Snyder was taken off the film was legitimate in that he had a personal tragedy.
Yes.
So without that personal tragedy, we wouldn't have the film that we have in front of us right now, which I don't know if it's my place to say whether that was good or not, but it is what it is, and what created here. But let's not forget, okay, first of all, Man of Steel, I like the epic Superman. I didn't think it was dark and brooding. I know a lot of people did. I called it epic, so for what it's worth. And then second of all, let's not forget, Flash, allegedly, not for sure, but we've heard rumors, is supposed to be Flashpoint. And if that's the case, a lot of these things can change anyway, which is kind of aggravating that they're going through all this trouble to fix things, only to fix them again with Flashpoint.
If it happens.
There's not even a script. That is such a rumor of a rumor. But getting back to this, so let's just boil down the whole Steppenwolf thing. Eventually, Steppenwolf gets all the 3 boxes, and he ends up in that, Chernobyl-like city. And then we get that final, sequence where Batman, his plan is to do the whole loner thing and drive off the parademons one way, and the team is supposed to go take care of Steppenwolf. But Diana makes a different call, doesn't she?
Yeah, and it's in line with what you'd expect out of Diana, especially as she has not quite recovered from the loss of Steve Trevor, which is, we're going to save you, whether you like it or not, and then we're going to do the mission.
That is where we get some of our crazy wild Aquaman, don't we? I mean, he's like having a bunch of fun with his quadrant and stabbing things, and
He
Oh my
surfed
gosh.
a dead body down the side of a building
Yeah, it was pretty sweet.
and then did the surfer dude head thing afterwards.
Oh my gosh. So, so SP, you've been talking about the boxes and the final fight sequence. So why don't you share your thoughts about like this final big fight with Steppenwolf?
It was epic. You didn't have Superman until halfway through it, and then you had the whole game-changing plan thing with Wonder Woman. I think it was exciting, exhilarating, and had enough twists in it to keep you interested throughout the majority of the fight. Also, the fact that they were having this, they've been really hit in the DC universe about destroying major parts of the world, right, in previous movies. So I think for them taking this fight into a nuclear reactor that had gone super critical and that people 30 years later were moving in. By the way, that's not enough time, but we'll not get into that right now. So people were moving in just because they had nowhere else to go. And it was a place to have this world changing battle without changing the world. And it was ironic at the very end where you did have some new life that was created throughout this battle too. But the battle itself, it was something that I really enjoyed. And maybe that colored my opinion of the film because I enjoyed that final battle so much. It didn't have a Martha moment in it or anything from Batman versus Superman. It was just plain fun all the way through, except for, like I said before, when Superman came in and he shoved the boxes apart from each other because he's the only one that could. So again, without Superman or with Superman not dead, that this would never have happened. But the final fight was fun.
It was fun, and it also proved you couldn't have Superman show up at the very beginning because it would have been a lot shorter because he was handed it to Steppenwolf and the whole of the Kryptonian as he comes in and just starts taking it to him. So again, it's establishing Superman as a powerful player, establishing him as arguably the most powerful player in the DC universe, and arguably going to set him up to be the chairman or the leader of the League like he is in most incarnations of Justice League, because once he gets there, everything kind of revolves around Clark.
And I really liked how Wonder Woman, again, Wonder Woman's vital as well, even in the fight, especially when her and Superman team up with, against Steppenwolf. Like she's got him on the attack and Superman does his cold breath on the axe and Diana is stabbing and end up breaking the axe. And, she's got her old lasso thing coming along. I enjoyed it. Everybody had the role to play. It was a true team fight. And I mean, yeah.
So one thing I'd like to bring out here is this villain had a true Lord of the Rings vibe to it because you had to have the whole armies of everybody come together in order to defeat him. In this case, it was just special powered super beings from different points of life. But if you augment the Justice League with a Green Arrow, with a Supergirl, with any other major powered player, Steppenwolf is gone really easily. This is a villain that can be easily defeated with a level of a Superman against it. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about this. We didn't have it. So, okay, we had exactly what we needed to defeat the villain, but there's more. And when that coffer is reloaded in the Justice League, I don't know what kind of a threat that they can't take care of.
Dark Side.
Yeah, I think this is why they couldn't have a Green Lantern show up. There must be some sort of a major cosmic thing with Sinestro, and that's why the Green Lantern Corps is busy. That's what I had in my head because I'm like, if a Green Lantern comes along, they wouldn't even need Superman. He would have been taken care of.
The better question would be, how would the Green Lantern Corps know that Steppenwolf returned? Because they have made no mention of a Green Lantern of Sector 2184 in the DC Cinematic Universe yet, i.e. that's the sector Earth is in. So we don't know if there's a John Stewart or a Hal Jordan that's out there as a Green Lantern. It could just be that the Lanterns are aliens. Unless they have some kind of monitoring station on Earth, they're not easily going to know about it. And maybe that's how you do the Green Lantern movie now, is that the Guardians on Oa noticed a disturbance involving the mother boxes on Earth, so they dispatch a Green Lantern to Earth. That Green Lantern gets killed and the ring goes to Hal Jordan, and that's how you set up the next Green Lantern movie. Very similar to what the last one was, but hopefully better done.
I find it hard to believe that the Green Lanterns would not know about Earth at all because they were brought in on the initial fight with Steppenwolf to ban him. So I think that this sector is being monitored by the Green Lantern Corps. Of course, we don't know what the status of the Corps is, so you're right about that.
Yeah, because if Sinestro got them in the corner or something, that's my headcanon right now. They're having trouble with Sinestro and everybody's needed, and that's why this sector is not being helped right now. That's my headcanon.
That's good enough. I want a Green Lantern in. I'm just glad that they gave us the head nod that Green Lanterns exist in this universe, and I'm fine with that for now. Because again, you add a Green Lantern, any Green Lantern into this fight, and it's over with very easily. So I'm glad we got the battle that we did.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's very easy because there were Green Lanterns in the last fight with Steppenwolf, and he killed at least one of them.
But you didn't have a Kryptonian. You didn't have
true.
the superpowered people. Yes, you had the Atlanteans. Yes, you had the Themyscirians, but the Amazons. But none of them were powered. They were just really skilled warriors.
So the fight is won. Credits start to roll, and we get post-credit scene number 1, which is the Flash and Superman race. And I just got the hugest smile on my face because that is straight from the comics.
Well, we all know that Oliver Queen wins against every race against the Flash. So I wonder how Oliver Queen would do against Superman.
He'd get it handed to him unless Oliver Queen had kryptonite.
Yeah, he would have to do the kryptonite arrow to the knee
I used to be an
Superman.
adventurer.
And then all the credits roll. And then because this time you actually had to sit. This is, a DC movie where you actually had to do like you were in a Marvel movie and sit through everything. Because then we get post-credit scene 2. We see the prison. Lex isn't there. Lex is instead chilling out on a yacht. And Chris, I'm going to give this to you. Someone arrives on a boat.
That's right. We see an armored form on a boat, but as they're driving the boat up, you get a view of him from behind, and you see kind of, not tassels, kind of flags and ribbons coming off the back of the guy's mask. And if you've watched Arrow, you start to see where we're getting to. And the man gets off the boat, and you see armor that looks very similar to what we've seen on Arrow. And he takes off his mask. He's got an eye patch, gray hair, gray beard, and gets referred to as Mr. Wilson. Yes, Deathstroke the Terminator is in fact in the DC Cinematic Universe. Looks to be teaming with Lex Luthor going forward, and it could be very interesting. This shouldn't surprise anyone, because remember, it's often been rumored that the Matt Reeves Batman movie was going to have Deathstroke in it. Supposedly they showed test footage of it at Comic-Con, but it was awesome to see on the big screen, and I look forward to seeing what they do with it. And I'll say something that might be unpopular. I kind of like the armor of Manu Bennett's Deathstroke more than I like the movie version of the armor. It seems too polished versus combat armor you got out of Deathstroke in the TV show.
It was, if you're going to port anybody over from the TV universe into the film universe, Manu Bennett as Deathstroke would have been the character to bring over. But I like the appearance of Deathstroke at the end, and I think I've said this before, and I haven't. I just have to say that I did not care for Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal as Lex Luthor, and I did not care for Jared Leto's portrayal of the Joker. So I need some villains that I can savor in the DC universe, and if Deathstroke's it, I will latch on to that to no end.
Yeah, it looks like Luthor is smarter and smoother. That's like the attitude he seemed to have. He wasn't like the whiny little bleep boy like from before. I won't say the word. And here's the thing. If they do the comic book version of Deathstroke that is enhanced, who's actually gone toe-to-toe with Batman and Superman, and so if you're a comic book fan, you actually realize the threat that Deathstroke could have. So the way they could go with it is like awesome in everything. So now that that's like our entire discussion of the film, SP, you
Yep.
got a favorite moment?
There were a lot of really good moments in here, which again is surprising for me to say because I did not care for Batman versus Superman or Suicide Squad. For the record, I did enjoy Wonder Woman, but I didn't know how they were going to bring back Batman and Superman and that whole thing. Well, I did like Man of Steel too. So I did not know how they were going to bring all this together and really get it going. Wow, there's just so much going on here. I will have to say, and she did it so many times. It was almost a cliche, but she had to keep doing it in order to just stand her ground in all these fights. When Wonder Woman brought her forearms together and did that big power push that she did every single time she did that, that was my favorite part. Now, there was a lot of other funny parts. There was a lot of other great parts, but just Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot coming out there and just firmly planting down that she is Wonder Woman, that she's got a spot here, and that she's one of the leaders. I mean, that was well done. And this, again, coming from a guy that said, what? Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman? No, that's never going to work. It did. It worked, and it worked great.
Chris?
Ooh, so I was originally going to say the Flash and Superman race, but I might have to change it to when the crazy recently awoken Kal-El of Krypton is fighting and Wonder Woman's like, don't make me do this. And she goes to clang the bracelets together and he grabs her wrists and just kind of looks at her and she headbutts him and he goes, bam, and headbutts her and drives her into the concrete. I just thought that was fun. I don't know why that got me so much as I just thought about it. But it's between that and the Flash and Superman race just because that felt so Superman and Flash.
And
Well,
for me,
let's go back to the race for a second. It was the bet before the race that was great too. Like, you have to take people to brunch and I have to tell everybody you won. So it was a great stakes on the race.
for me, Wonder Woman, but SP, basically what SP said. So I'm going to add Barry Allen. Yes, he's kind of like quippy and light, but he is different than the television show version. He has, I don't know, he's not quite the people person. He's not, he's still trying to find his place in the world. But that moment with Cyborg in the cemetery where he's like, I could do this faster, but I kind of don't want to. And he's trying to bond with Cyborg. And then you have the callback where he's like, oh my gosh, is this like a pet cemetery thing? I hope not. I just really like he was done.
He was. And the whole bringing Superman back to life, that whole scene where the whole team had to contribute, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah. Why don't we go with, let's face it, it's not a perfect film. So why don't we get our negative nitpicks out of the way? SP, what didn't you like?
I sure didn't like 3 origin stories in one film. I didn't like the way they did it with Wonder Woman and Batman versus Superman. I think that was a big drawback of the film to me. And I think she deserved a better intro than just a side character in Batman versus Superman. It was very awkward for that. Yes, they did it better this time, but I did not like even a single origin story. And then we got 3 origin stories in one film. Big detractor. I think they could have done it better. It just maybe the order of the films. I mean, I think what happened is Warner Brothers looked at Marvel and they said, oh, Avengers, they did so well with Avengers and the Captain America movies where there's just the big ensemble cast. That's what we need to do with the DC universe. And they didn't bother going through the single films. Yes, Wonder Woman, the film, was great after she was introduced. And yes, Wonder Woman was one of the better parts of Batman versus Superman, but as a storyline, when it was just, ugh. So I wish that would have been done better. And that was my main detractor of the movie.
Chris?
So it's between 2 points for me. I feel like they cut too much out to get to the 2-hour runtime. I feel like you could have done 2 hours and 10 minutes, 2 hours and 15 minutes, been able to put a little bit more in there. Maybe give us a little more on Aquaman, because I've said it a few times. They got 2 out of the 3 origins right. I think that was well done in this case. It was kind of a necessary evil because they hadn't done the standalone. But really kind of the one that makes me scratch my head, and I'm not sure if anyone else noticed, is they outed the secret identity of two different characters. Aquaman outs Bruce Wayne in Norway or wherever, where he starts calling him Batman, saying, "You dress up like a bat," blah, 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 in front of a bunch of people who evidently some of them speak English. We find out when they're in the bar/town hall. So he outed his identity there. And then they keep calling Superman Clark during the fight when he wakes up, when there's police officers sitting there. So Superman returns and Clark Kent returns from the dead to come to the Daily Planet. I wonder if there's going to be implications to that, because remember, they don't play around with secret identities in the Marvel universe, but they seem to do so in the DC universe. So they need to be a bit more careful there to preserve those identities.
My negative part is that there were, some butt shots. We saw maybe a little, too much of that. I know I have a funny feeling that it could have been worse. So I'm kind of glad, because I have this feeling that it could have been worse. I wasn't a fan of the bikini armor on some of the Amazons, because the armor in the Wonder Woman film was done so much better. And so to see that, and then to see what we got in the movie, it was like, man, really? The CGI with Henry, with Cavill's face, because that kind of was distracting, because it's like, that's not his jawline. Where did his jawline go?
Did he have surgery? Did he have plastic surgery?
Yeah. Because it was like his teeth. It's like his jawline and his teeth. What's going on? So yeah, that's, that's probably my nitpicks, my negative parts about the film. But now, let's go to what we liked about it. SP, what did you like about the movie?
I like that it was fun, jovial. I like that it wasn't dark, basically, and that I don't go for the darkness. I know a lot of people do. I don't. So I like that it wasn't dark. I like that they had fun moments in it, and it wasn't just a smirky moment. It was a laugh out loud moment. So I did like that. I know some of them were in the trailers beforehand, and I think that was before they were doing the research shoots. So maybe that was all they had. And when they put the trailer together, they're like, oh no, we can't have this dark of a trailer. We need something light. So they actually put the jokes in that they might not have wanted to do so before. So I did like that. So we'll see what happens in the future, because I know DC is not Marvel. I get that. But at the same time, I don't want to sit through a dark, like the whole Batman trilogy that was before this whole reboot. I don't like it. And I don't like it because it's dark and brooding.
Okay. Chris?
Oh, it's simple. They fixed Superman. I've been on the record. I had multiple issues with the DC Universe version of Superman. They fixed it in this movie, which makes me happy. I'm not the biggest Superman fan in the world, but you need to do the character justice for what it is. And it's fixed, and I can't wait to see where they go forward with that character and his interactions with everyone in the Justice League.
For me, it was the humor, the character moments, and I liked the fact that the whole team was needed. I was afraid that this was going to be like the Batman show, or like the Batman then Wonder Woman show, and then the Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman show, with just maybe everybody else just infrequently around. But this was actually a team movie. Everybody was needed, and I really like that aspect. How about rating the movie however you want? SP, how would you rate?
It was definitely entertaining. And because I had such low expectations going into it, let's face it, we were looking at the Rotten tomato meter, and the critics had it below 40%. And it was added by the fact that Warner Brothers didn't allow the Rotten Tomatoes early scores to be out there. I mean, whenever that happens, you're like, okay, the scores are going to be low. I don't know how they know that, but they do.
Well,
I don't know how the whole system works. Yep.
Part of that was on Rotten Tomatoes because they held the score so they could do their See It or Not Facebook TV show where they unveiled the score too. So part of it is we got held up by them wanting to make people watch their television program.
Okay, so there was early indications that this wasn't going to be good. Let's face it, the whole Zack Snyder change over to Joss Whedon thing, although did not have, like, Zack wasn't fired from the film. He left it for personal reasons. I think that whole thing and the 80% reshoots thing, I think there was a lot of lowered expectations going into this film, which is just fine because it turned out to be entertaining. I'm glad I spent the money to go see it on the big screen. Could this have been something that I waited to see at home later on? Of course, but I'm glad I had a chance to do it because I get to talk to great other people like you guys and say how much I actually enjoyed the film. So yeah, it was good. And it was a lot better than Batman versus Superman or Suicide Squad.
Chris?
But wait a minute. How would I rate it? Okay. So I just said how I liked it. How would I rate it? On a scale of 1 to 10, it wasn't phenomenal. It wasn't the best thing ever. It wasn't a cinematic masterpiece, but it was fun. So I'll go with a solid 7.
Chris?
It is their second best movie out of the 4 movies that make up the cinematic universe. It is leagues ahead of what Batman v Superman was, leagues better than Suicide Squad, but it is not better than Wonder Woman. So if I had to rate it, I enjoyed it. It's something I'm glad I saw in the theater, but again, I have a movie pass, so I pay $10 a month and see all the movies I want, so it's not like I really had to think too hard on the price. 6.5 for a 7 out of 10. It's perfectly serviceable. I'd watch it again, and I'll probably buy the Blu-ray.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Wonder Woman is tops. I enjoyed this thoroughly. And everything. Definitely better than the other ones, especially the Academy Award winning Suicide Squad. And yeah, considering some of the uneven tone and such, yeah, 7, 8. Would we like a sequel? SP, would you like a sequel?
Yeah, I would. But here's the thing. I'm very worried, and I think we're going to talk about it in a second anyway. I think I'm worried about the solo films from here on in because we know all these other characters exist. So it's always the question, as it is in the Marvel universe, where are these other characters? So I think we have to be careful going forward, or DC or Warner Brothers has to be careful going forward on that. But yeah, I would like to see a sequel on this. Of course, your big bads become limited because you have to have somebody or a big bad or a villain so bad that you have to have the whole team come in. And there's going to be more team because we do have a Green Lantern movie on the horizon, right? So you're adding another factor to this, another dimension. Just saying. But yeah, I'd go see another Justice League 2 movie.
We're going to get it. I mean, they were going and they bought the new Hall of Justice or whatever, where 6 seats, but room for more. And they name dropped Darkseid. And Darkseid, let me pull a Marvel analogy here for how they've done their movies. Darkseid's the Thanos of the DC universe. They're all building towards him. He's the big bad that's going to be pulling the strings on everything. I would watch it. Now, I don't know what's going to happen, though, because we've seen some comments out there on the DC cinematic side of things where they've talked that instead of trying to do everything linked into the same universe, they're talking a lot more standalones that aren't as tied together. And there's a lot of overreaction going on right now because people are freaking out because Justice League is trending worse than Wonder Woman, trending worse than box office than Thor Ragnarok did on opening weekend. I think it's a bit of a misnomer. I think you're going to see positive reviews and positive talk come from people and more people going to go see Justice League over this upcoming Thanksgiving holiday. So it's not all tragic like everyone's trying to say online. It's an enjoyable movie. You should go see it for yourself. And we'll get a sequel at some point in time. I just don't think we're going to be talking like they did with Avengers. Like, wait 2 years, we're going to give you another Avengers movie. I think they're going to have to do some more of these single movies, maybe some team up stuff to start building the universe a little bit more. And they have to figure out what they're going to do with Batman. Because, yes, I'm a Batman fan. You can't do a Justice League movie without it. And with Ben Affleck potentially out the door, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I would love to see another one. I especially would like it if they brought in a Green Lantern. That would be great. If they do another one, if they stick with Affleck as Batman, then I would want him to be more along the side because one of the things that came up over and over again was how human he is. And like, he's beat up. If they get like a new Batman who is a little bit, younger, because let's face it, the Batman they present, he's in it 20 years. He can't do it much more. He just can't. So either they do it and this type of Batman is like Watchtower or something, and he's more like the detective and you have all like the superhero people, or, something like that. But I would like to see a sequel. And we have other DC films coming up. Are we excited about those? SP?
I'm excited about them, except for Batman. I'm not excited for that. I'm not a fan of the Affleck, even in this iteration of it. And I'm not a fan of the Joker. So the Batman film is kind of on the bottom for me. As with Superman, I like Superman. I don't like Lex Luthor. I don't like Jesse Eisenberg as the villain portrayal here. And if they go with Jesse Eisenberg as the villain, as they probably need to because of contracts, and that's the big bad, and they really haven't resolved that or anything. I won't be interested in that. I do like Henry Cavill as Superman, though. I always have. So aside from that, I'm excited to see Aquaman and really excited to see Mera. I'm excited to see where they go with the Flash, especially given the fact that we're 4 seasons in on the TV show. So what can you give me in the film that's different with the TV show? And of course, I'm always going to be interested in Wonder Woman. She's the best out of the bunch. Just can't wait to get more of her. There you go.
Chris?
Which one are we on again? Sorry.
Are you excited about the other DC films?
Yes, sorry, complete brain fart. So I am, and I'm very curious. I know I've mentioned before, what are they going to do with Batman? Because I have this great headcanon in my mind that if you can get Ben Affleck to come back for part 1, you can do the passing of the mantle and get Dick Grayson as Batman, bring a younger character in there who is younger, more in line with the age of the Justice League characters, and continue the story going forward. So I really want to see what they do with that, and also because I want to see Deathstroke. I want to see something Green Lantern coming forward, and honestly, I'll say something unpopular. Momoa was all right as Aquaman. I don't know that they've done enough to make me care about an Aquaman movie at this point. Maybe we'll get more of his backstory, which would be interesting, but at the same time, I'm like, I care more about pretty much all of the other characters in the league than Aquaman.
I actually am intrigued by Aquaman. He was doing in the movie. I was really happy to see Mera, and it seems as though they're going to do the basically kind of like the magic version of her, where she's basically kind of like a water witch almost, and like she's from Zebul and the whole deal. And if they do that in the movie, that would be so cool in the Aquaman movie. And Wonder Woman, duh. And I'm excited for a Flash movie. I liked Ezra Miller, but I'm not thrilled if they do Flashpoint first, because they haven't done enough with this universe to do Flashpoint, because you only care about Flashpoint if you have an established universe, because there are consequences, and you can't care about the destruction of a universe of a universe that hasn't been built yet.
If the only thing they change, I was thinking about this actually. If the only thing they change with Flashpoint is to change out the Batman, I think that would be good, because they keep everything else fine and they change out Batman because of Affleck leaving. Then I think that could work out.
Any last thoughts that you want to get off your chest before we wrap this up?
We
SP?
forgot. Oh, sorry.
I can't believe I like the DC movie.
Chris?
So one thing we haven't even mentioned, we do know a Batgirl movie's coming in at some point in time because Whedon's on board to do it. So I'm curious where it fits into things. So there's a lot of potential things that could happen in the future, and they've got me hooked and going, okay, I'm curious. So you got me. Don't screw it up, DC.
Yeah, and I have to say I was so happy. I liked this more than I thought I would. But I'm just really happy I liked it, and give this movie a chance. Don't just listen to the critics who I think are subconsciously comparing it to Marvel, especially with Thor Ragnarok just coming out and how splendid their reaction was to that. I think they are subconsciously comparing it. So give this movie a chance.
Yeah, don't pay attention to the critic reviews, and arguably don't pay attention to the user reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, because it's somewhere in between what those reviews reflect. But I think that is going to wrap us up. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. So thank you everyone that did participate live in our chat room over on Geeks.live. I saw a few people drop in and out. But don't forget, you can download the replays by heading over to StarlingTribune.com, where it has this episode, plus all of our reviews and discussions on the entire back catalog of Arrow and some of Legends Tomorrow. And you can also view the video replay by heading over to the Gonna Geek YouTube channel.
And remember, you can always catch us as we record at geeks.live. That's www.geeks.live. Yes, that is an actual internet extension at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific on Sundays.
We would love to hear from you. We are the Starling Tribune on Facebook and Instagram, as Starling Tribune on Twitter, and you can call us at 612-888-CAVE. That's 612-888-2283. Well, this wraps up another great episode. It was great talking Justice League with you guys. Any last words before we sign off? At Stargate Pioneer.
Hashtag competitive ice dancing.
At the Chris Farrell.
Hashtag they fixed Superman.
And I am at Michelle Ely, signing off with hashtag Aquaman surfs on a dead guy. Oracle, I think we're done here.
This was the Starling Tribune. You can leave us feedback at gonnageek.com or check out our archive at starlingtribune.com. Visit gonnageek.com for more podcasts. Music by Kevin MacLeod can be found at incompetech.com. This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, stories, and situations are the property of Time Warner. No infringement is intended. We will see you for the next episode of CW's Arrow.